Hello and welcome to the Mindful Man Project. This is where we discuss all the issues and pieces of the puzzle that is mental health. We look at the things in life that get people down or create anxiety in their life and hopefully give some guidance on how to become a modern mindful man or woman. I am your host, Tyson Venables. On today's episode, we have Rich Muir. Rich is a Vedic meditation teacher living up on New South Wales North Coast. Such an epic dude. I can't wait to get into this conversation with him. He has a lot to say. He has a lot of knowledge and has been through a lot of experiences in his life himself. So it is going to be made into a great conversation, and I can't wait to share it all with you. How's things, mate?
Yeah, good man. Yeah, it's a little bit tired today. We had like the winds have just been open that door a bit. Last night, just howling winds, and we're living in a place where it's like heaps of big trees around us, and you could just hear them like going like crazy. So it's kind of one of those sleeps where you're going, oh, I hope we don't hear a tree fall on the house or the cars and that sort of thing. So
yeah, it's one of those ones where you're like. We had that last night as well, just this howling wind, and just like, we've got a couple near our house, and you're like, yeah, the same thing. You're kind of going, what the hell? Like, he's kind of sleeping with one eye open, ready for
totally. I was saying that to one. I was even dreaming, but aware of the sound and the trees and the wind, and so that kind of really surface level sleep. And then I've been doing some rounding every day, just with some students and stuff, and so I was up really early and doing some rounding and. Which was great, beautiful. We put on the fire and just did some rounds and stuff.
So really cool. You're doing that like wirelessly with people you've already
yeah. Just I didn't wasn't a big promotion. I just sent out to a few to some of the students. So I'm gonna do this. Going to do Monday to Friday, an hour, then Saturday 2 hours, Sunday 3 hours, just to do it up a little bit.
Nice.
And, yeah, man. Yeah, it's really good. How you guys been traveling, man?
Yeah, we're going pretty well. Like the studio and stuff that we've set up online, the Flow State Studios, it's going like we're actually really quite happy with it.
Awesome.
The membership side of things is continuing to rise, so that's one curve that hasn't been flattened, thank God. It's building, and it's one thing that we've always wanted to do. So now it's kind of getting into that point where we've done it now, and if we were to stay in Melbourne or move on, it still continues wherever we go. So
you still got that platform and the audience and stuff, and
just seeing yourself, just especially at this time, you can see how much people need what you've got to offer, and just being there for those people has actually been really quite rewarding in that respect.
Yeah. No, it's I'm just getting a glass of water. Yeah, that's awesome, man.
Yeah. So.
And how many classes? You're doing lots of classes. Saw a post on Facebook the other day and saw the timetable. Looks like you guys are pretty busy.
We're not quite. That's for sure. We've got 22 classes a week.
Wow, that's awesome.
22 classes a week between the yoga, fitness, and the yoga and fitness, and we're doing meditation classes and stuff as well.
And is that just you two running all those?
Yeah, we've just brought on we're bringing on another teacher at the moment.
Awesome.
So she starts on Thursday, and then there'll be another yoga teacher who comes on board in the next week, and then hopefully we kind of start to build our teacher base from there, and then bringing in different types of people to do lives and stuff like that to our membership. So it's not just myself and Emma, and that way then we're not solely reliant on the two of us doing all the work, and obviously then allowing our membership base to be access to multiple different teachers, so they've got that variety as well,
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, because you probably would get a little bit, even though we probably all love working with the same people, occasionally that different flavour.
Yeah, absolutely. And everybody's got their own different wisdom and knowledge as well. So especially in yoga and stuff like that, you want to be able to allow people to have that input from people, and that way then they can kind of well, you know yourself, as soon as you start to open your eyes a little bit more, hearing different theories and stuff from different people allows you then to draw your own conclusion on what is actually happening for yourself.
Yeah, or trying to determine.
Try, yeah. Well, that's the thing. It's like that's the thing, like right. It's like you try and determine the best your ability rather than being told what to think, and
Yeah.
just you're slipping into that sort of situation.
Well, that's a funny conversation, that one right now, isn't it? told what to think.
And
Holy crap.
it's yeah, and that's the thing, right? It's like trying to and having that who you have that discussion with is you got to
Yeah.
you choose who you have that little bit of a
Yeah.
bit of a convo.
It's nuts, hey. It's so
Yeah,
nuts.
and I guess like even for yourself, because like I mentioned in my little intro before you jumped on that you're a Vedic meditation teacher, and
Yeah.
for those people who aren't familiar with what Vedic is, do you want to just kind of give a little bit of a rundown on? Like, I know it's
Yeah.
it's pretty like deep to go into and complex, but
I'm a pretty simple guy, Ty, so I like to keep things pretty simple. And the Vedic meditation, I guess, dates back to, you know, indications of like 5,000 years. And it's hand in hand with yoga and Ayurvedic medicine. And so it's really back at the root. And what's amazing is that these ancient masters have known all these amazing things and on how to live effortlessly and be more in tune with nature.
mm,
And I think that's kind of the fundamental aspects of a lot of the wisdom is coming back to that realization that we're nothing but nature.
yeah,
And you know, for some reason, like I said, this stuff's been around for thousands and thousands of years, but we still get so trapped in the stories and trapped in the battles and that millions and millions of people have been trying to solve for thousands of years, and yet the same stories just still keep circulating and percolating, and which I think is unreal now that we're starting to see, especially in the West, this wider adoption of meditation practices and
yeah,
which is epic from schools to
yeah. And I think
mainstream.
just yeah, even just with what I've done and stuff, you can really start to see like just even people who have been really quiet, I can't meditate type of person, just starting to see different things and they're starting to change and they're actually having these realizations and just being able to observe what is actually happening around them. And you go, oh, they've like that tide is kind of starting to change in certain people, and which is
Definitely.
really it's really magical and like really potent because like once that sort of starts to happen, then you're kind of seeing things in a different light. That's for sure.
Yeah, and what's really interesting is that if we look at, I just love looking at, like, you know, in those the Vedic traditions and those traditions that yoga, or as they're called, asanas, the postures are actually designed to help lead people into meditation,
Mm.
and same as breath. And you look at now, yoga's been massive. Like, you know, yoga's like for the last 10 years, like I first sort of walked into a yoga studio probably 26 years ago. And it was definitely, you know, like the assumption would be that you're going to have your bowl of lentils afterwards as well.
Yeah,
Whereas now, like, you know, you go to yoga, then go get your cappuccino straight afterwards and stuff. It's just widely accepted amongst that every street corner and every suburb has a yoga studio, and it's awesome. It's such a beautiful thing, and I love that. I look at that now. So yoga's been around, a long time, but the last 20 years, 10 years, 5 years is becoming more and more accepted. And all of a sudden, here comes meditation
yeah,
mainstream. So that movement, naturally, when we look at that synergy of the asanas, we do the yoga postures, then meditate. That's always kind of been the what do you call it? First one, we do yoga, then we do meditation. And now all
yeah,
of a sudden, the fact that meditation is, now being widely accepted, it's just a really nice sequence that again, we've adopted. And I think the reason for that is that in the West, we've always been incredibly focused on the visual. How do we look? The body movement. And it's awesome. We need to do that. And that's why I think that had a much more of a, because meditation's been around for the same amount of time, but I think the focus on the West with the body just made it much more adaptable to the Western mindset. But now that we're still seeing, I always use an analogy that we've got greater access to health and nutrition information than ever before. We all know we should be, eating good foods and organic foods if possible, and lots of good fruit and veg. And there's nutritional support everywhere we can look. We can find that information and great practitioners. Then we've also got greater access to movement, like experts like yourself, Tice, that have been doing it for years and working with people on all different levels. And there's CrossFit, Park Fit, yoga, Pilates, gyms, you
Yeah.
name it. There's so much there. But yet, despite those two factors, we've got higher rates of anxiety, depression, anxiety, and stress than ever before. And stress is still the biggest killer on the planet with cardiovascular disease. So I kind of liken it to that we've been looking after the car really well, but we forgot about the driver. We just forgot that the guy inside the body is still freaking out. And I'm sure it's the same as you, mate, when I've taught so many people that they are super fit. They are yoga teachers and eating incredibly well, but deep below that, there's still this really a calling or a yearning for something, or a dissatisfaction or a dis-ease in general with life. And I just put a lot of that down to stress in some kind of way, shape, form, or another. And I think that's where, again, we took up all these other things and practiced, but still inside we're not, there's still this feeling. How do I get rid of that? And a lot of us might have been trying to do that previously with substances and so on. And then even that's got a tipping point. It's not sustainable anymore. I can't sustain this behavior without it starting to really erode my lifestyle. And therefore we start opening it up. And I think that's what we're seeing with people that go, I can't meditate, my mind's too busy, and we go, that's just misconceptions. Welcome to the club. It's like I've had just a muck around t-shirt design made for one of our little things we're doing at the moment. It's like t-shirts. I suck at meditation, but I'm cool with that. It's like, we're not meditating to be good meditators, so it doesn't matter. Just it's all good. So yeah, definitely, man. There's definitely a beautiful uptake of the practice of meditation.
It's been great, and that's the thing is I did, when I've gone through my own journey and stuff like that, and did different types of meditation, breath work, and mindfulness, and all this kind of stuff. And I was always like, yeah, I can do it, but I can't do it. And then I've discovered what I've been taught, and it was effortless. It just became effortless, and it was like allowing the thoughts to be there. You didn't have to stop them, and then and that's the greatest thing. It's just you continually on the mantra or whatever you're using is it just takes you into that deeper state of being, and it's pretty beautiful once you're in there. And not comparing one to the next is what I've found is really really great. One could be really quite blissful, the next one's really quite noisy, and it's just allowing it to just be what it is, and moving on, and just allowing yourself that. And that's what how you said, everybody's just in a lot of people, not everybody, a lot of people are in that stressed out state, that fight or flight. And a lot of people at the moment are in that fight, flight, or just freezing, because they just they don't know what to do. And
super agitated.
Yeah, super agitated. There's so much noise going on, and it's easy to get drawn into it. And I've found even through coaching and through yoga and stuff like that, a lot of people use these places to escape whatever else is happening. But then you're also continuing that loop of stress, because you're still like you said, the asana practice is a practice of unraveling all of and bringing the body to a point where you can meditate at a point where the body is now no longer influencing what the mind is doing. And it's the same thing with people who go to the gym too. I've noticed that in CrossFit, I'll have people this is my best part of the day. I've got to escape everything out of there. But it's but if you added meditation onto the back end of a CrossFit class, or you added meditation onto the back end of a fitness session, what would that then do for you moving back into the world, or going back into it? And that's what I really said about trying to educate people, was these things that you're doing are great, but in the same token are not helping, or are helping but not fully getting to that point where you could actually really like see some more benefit on that de-stressing kind of the body.
So it's kind of like we're just, I think if I've interpreted that correctly, like we're replacing one way of living, one habit with another positive habit, but
Yeah.
we're still kind of not dealing with a lot of the underhanded stuff, which isn't helping us live as optimally as possible. And, it's the one thing I love about the Vedas is it's all about, because when I first went to meditation was, after experiencing a lot of the illusion of life that we're here, especially in the West, we want to succeed and you achieve and we pursue. And quite young, I was, I guess call it fortunate. I went from being a pretty broke, stoned artist, young artist student, to then entering into doing of all things what all good artists do, is then I became a car salesman. And within in 3 short years, I was actually at 26 the sales manager of a $40 million Mercedes-Benz dealership, and I still don't know how I managed to get that. Still dumbfounded. But I was earning really good money at quite a young age, and I was driving around 100 grand company car, the Benz company car. I lived in Avalon on the Northern Beaches, had a house there with the wife and the 2 kids. And by all accounts, my income was pretty close to 200 grand. And this was about 18 years or so ago. How old am I now? About 18 years. Oh God, yeah. And so a lot of money. And it was like I had the house, the kids, the car, the everything. But inside was like, I can't keep doing this. But this is meant to be the end game. Are you kidding me? And that, which is, I think, that illusion of life is this. So obviously I surfed, which was like, it's my way of getting out of it, my gym or whatever it might have been. But they were temporary reprises from life. And then I left the dealership and, was out to making millions and all that sort of stuff. But then ended up, again, through deep dissatisfaction. I guess there's a part of my psyche, I think there was always a searcher from a very young age, that questioning and searching and going, what are we here for? Like, really? Is this all there is? And then went to Vipassana. And that was probably about 13 years ago, which is the 10-day Noble Silence Retreat, which is a Buddhist form of practice. And that was so cathartic and pivotal for me to really come back to the understanding of, oh my God, I just had never felt so grounded, so in touch and connected with life. It was so beautiful. It was just illuminating. But it's really, really freaking hard though. Like, it's kind of like the mixed martial arts version of meditation. You're trapped in a cage fight with someone that's an expert and you've got no idea what you're doing, and they're just beating the crap out of you for 10 days, which is yourself. And but again, it was an amazing process. But the challenge for me with them was, you mentioned that meditate for an hour in the morning, an hour at night. So it wasn't sustainable for me in that current state of consciousness that I was in. And so I spent many years backwards and forwards, and not like, as you said, mentioned before, Tice, like trying different things to try and find, how can I live happily in this life and without trying to get out of it. Again, that constant way of moving from one thing to the next, and or projecting, oh, tomorrow will be great because I'm doing this, rather than being in the moment. And when I get home tonight, it'll be good. And then when I get home tonight, it'll be great when the show comes on at 8:30. That constant projection rather than being in the present moment.
Yeah.
And the Vedic philosophy, when I first came to the Vedas, was after many years and 3 visits to Vipassana and lots of different techniques. I was going to go back from a 4th visit to the Vipassana because I thought I knew I needed a practice in my life, just for my personality, my psyche. It was very bleak without it. It was like, life just sucks. And even though I had a beautiful, like on the outside, a wonderful life, but inside I was just, there'd be periods where I was like, I'd rather not be here. I don't see the point, and this is the voices running through your head going, what the heck, and thinking all these sort of thoughts. So I ended up meeting a friend that told me to go to Vedic, and started to sort of tap into the practice, and straight away was like, just felt that groundedness again, like I had from Vipassana. And because there's lots of beautiful techniques, but some were just, they didn't feel as substantial as Vipassana, but Vipassana's too hard, whereas Vedic was like, wow, I get it. And the beautiful thing about the Vedic philosophy is it's designed it was about living by the household techniques. So householders like you and I, we work, we have kids and so on. So not monastic like a Buddhist practice, like the Vipassana, which is like more of a monastic practice where we can go and spend 8 hours a day trying to force the mind inwards. Like, we got 20 minutes, man, because we're here to live. We're here to be active. We're here to make the most of every opportunity. So when we're doing these activities like CrossFit and gym, yep, we're feeling great in that moment, because we kind of might get into a flow state where the brain just backs off for a little while. That the program of running rich just has a little bit of a break, but the body's still really active.
Yeah.
So then we stop that and we get back to projecting forward. Tomorrow will be really good, or I can't wait to the next gym session. But we've got this insatiable fire that we're never quite pleased with the moment unless we're doing something like gym. And then when we're not at gym, it's like, well, that sets up that, oh, I can't wait to get back there. And as a surfer, it's just like, you're forever in that state, like you get, what's the wind's doing? And you're constantly projecting and so on. So I think what meditation really delivered to me was that life is here and now. There's nowhere else I can never be. And by, even that projection of the future, it just creates suffering and some kind of misery, because we're looking forward to something, or we're flashing back to the past. And so it's constantly attached, like most of us, attached to these ideas, which are just constructions in the mind. And that meditation just brought me more into the contact with, the underlying being, what you might call that filter being. Whereas like you bring your awareness into, wow, I can feel the sun on my skin. And okay, right now I've just done CrossFit. That was great. Now I've just done meditation. That's great. Now I'm just with my family. That's great. And I'm cooking. And as I'm cooking, I'm just totally in that space of cooking.
Yeah.
And I think it just lets us be aware. And look, that's not to say that we never have that thought, like, that's the illusion. And that's one thing I used to think, that great teachers and these other great teachers like Buddha or Jesus or these sort of amazing human beings that apparently walked the earth before us, they mustn't have had thoughts like I do. They must have been superhuman. But
And you have a look at all those guys and all girls, and they're all having fun.
yeah,
So you have, and you come across any of the greatest teachers, and they're just like these children inside who are just enjoying that moment. And you have a look, and yourself, you're a father, and you've got kids, and then even when they were small, like they were of the stick, and the stick was whatever they choose to make it, and they were having fun in that moment. And I liken meditations teaching art, like an adult, how to find that inner child to then enjoy that moment where you are right now. Like you said, like the chopping of the carrot or whatever it is. It's like, I'm actually enjoying and appreciating and appreciative of this moment right now, rather than worrying 3 weeks down the track what I have to do 3 weeks down the track. Not to say that you don't have to worry about that, but you don't
have to worry about it. You might have to think about it, but
exactly. Yeah.
And I think and it's even that concept of when we are cutting the carrot, all the time we might be cutting the carrot to enjoy the meal, rather than just, every step of the way, we're just immersed in that moment. So definitely I think if you tack on a practice to the end of any of those sort of techniques, or in any way of life, I think the great illusion that I really had to work through for a long time in meditation is that life still happens. We still have challenges. We still have, things like, I see brilliant meditators that have been meditating for 30, 40 years that go through divorce, or that we're still experiencing all these beautiful notes on the keyboard of life. But I think also what it empowers us to do, and even from a scientific perspective, is that it just gives us greater access to our nervous system, the tools within these amazing bodies that we've inherited, right? Like the human brain is incredible. And when we start to meditate, scientifically it shows that we can increase what they call brain coherence, and so we get greater access to the right hand side of the right hemisphere of the brain, the creative thinking, the present moment awareness, as well as engaging with the critical thinking, the left hemisphere of the brain. So when we're in situations, from working to life to love to whatever, we just increase our ability. Okay, what do I need? What tool set do I need here? Like so my dad, he had this, I always use this metaphor. He had, he'd walk into his garage and he had like tools, and every tool had a diagram.
Yeah, I remember the cutout on it. Yeah.
But so every tool had its place, and he was the type of guy that if he needed a tool only ever once, he'd go and buy it because he just hated borrowing things. So his toolkit was amazing. My toolkit's like a little Kmart black box. and it's got a screwdriver and maybe some pliers. I really don't know. And I'm about to build a house soon. And so if that's all I had, it'd take me a very long time and be pretty bad, right? You know, I'd be trying to fix problems with a screwdriver that needed a hammer. And, you know what I mean? But I use that as a metaphor a lot because we're defaulting constantly to our old patterns, and our brain just accesses the old information. And this is how I'd get through stuff. I might use anger as a solution to this problem. Ah, God. Ah. And even though it's like, well, there's nothing to be really angry about, but that's the only tool I've got in my toolkit. Whereas when we start to meditate, it just seems to open up more channels in the brain to go, okay, I used to just use anger to solve that problem. Right now, my little kid's just dropped a bowl of porridge on the floor. And if I get angry, realistically, it's just going to freak him out and probably do him long-term, you know, damage, or make him think that's how he acts as well. Instead of it, maybe I just need to have a bit of compassion and understanding it was just an accident. So I think meditation also opens us up that ability to go, okay, what's the situation, the present moment, and how am I best to fulfill my obligations as a human being in this with the outcomes that I want? Okay, I want my child to feel loved and connected and okay if stuff goes wrong, rather than yell at little Tommy, you idiot, drop the pile of porridge on the floor, we're going to be late for school. It's like, no big deal, man, it's okay.
Yeah.
Life happens. So I really think that when we tack these practices on to whatever we currently do, we just find it increases our tool set that to deal with all the stuff and all the challenges in life that we're always going to be confronted by. And I think the beautiful thing about COVID is that it has really highlighted that we have no control of anything outside of ourselves. And that's where also I think the whole Buddhist thing of, you know, non-attachment to what's going on around us and so on. Again, that's a massive vehicle to create instability. And whereas again, that what stability is, again, I think one of the full power aspects of meditation, because there's always these tides and we're always pushed and pulled by life. COVID's just been like a monsoonal king tide with like full moons and everything. Yeah. And it's swept us all out to sea and about to bring us back and drop us back on land. Yet, and if you don't have inner stability, you're freaking out, you know, unless you've got your job and everything else is okay. But for those that are in that vulnerable state, our emotions just get swept up in that. And, you know, whereas we start to have these practices, we start to create that inner stability where it's like, okay, cool. It's, you know, I can deal with it. And what tool do I need? Again, because stress right now, it's the worst thing in the world people get, you know, should be falling back on, because again, scientifically, we lose access to the prefrontal cortex, which is the executive command center. And so we can't even think critically. We can't even think our way out of a situation. So I think it gives us a lot.
It decreases your immune system.
Totally.
So you get stressed out, you get this cold that could potentially like be life threatening, and it's like, rather than being in this heightened state of like stress, like, yeah, the meditation, like you then come back under control with your prefrontal cortex, you lower the stress levels, you lower cortisol, your immune system can then flourish and work at its peak. And it's just like, it's just this cycle that if you had it under control, if it was under control, you can then move through this time a little less like a ship in a monsoon rather than just a ship kind of bobbing on the ocean.
Yeah, totally. And look, I think we've all, you know, we're all experiencing some kind of, maybe potentially call it agitation, and, you know, which is natural. And especially you walked in the shops and you feel everyone's in that state, you know, and as a collective, there's that definite, you know, definite agitation. And yeah, so I think you're totally spot on, Tice, as well, the whole immune factor and all that sort of stuff. It just seems to be that meditation just gives us, it would almost sound too good to be true.
Yeah.
You know, when you sit there and you go, I've got an issue of this is and this, this and this and this and this, and you say, hey, meditation. It's like, yeah, right, sure. Come on, man. Like, it can't do all of that. I think the reason it can is because stress is probably at the root cause of a lot of those other issues.
Yeah.
Because it's suppressing our immune system and it's doing all these other things. It's just, you know, decreasing our ability for creative thinking and intelligence. So when we start I liken stress to like a strangle fig. And it's, you know, the strangle figs, so there's a beautiful tree and there's a little parasympathetic growth that grows at the root of the tree and starts to encase its way around that tree. And it looks, oh my God, that's so beautiful. Look at this vine growing around the tree. And over time you can't see, oh, is there two trees in there? Is there one? They become so dependent, or should I say, that the strangle fig actually starts to take all the vital nutrients out of that tree. So it compresses it, and over time, if that strangle fig's not removed, that tree cannot fruit, flower, or flourish.
Yeah.
Possible, because all its nutrients are supporting stress and supporting the strangle fig. And unless that the strangle fig is removed, that tree will die. And it's exactly what I liken distress being to the human nervous system, that it just starts to creep up on us. And like, because we look at us, as I mentioned before, we're like little babies that just got a stick and they're running around, like little kids running around playing Star Wars with this stick, and they're so consumed in this beautiful world, and they're not carrying the story of stress with them. But then as we start to move older and older, that little, we get maybe a story, maybe we got smacked by dad, and maybe this happened, we got bullied at school, and all these little stresses start to work its way in and just start to encase us. And all of a sudden our stories are just so wrapped up in this backlog of stuff. And again, that's why cardiovascular disease is the biggest killer on the planet. It's a stress related illness. We store all this stuff within our nervous system, and it just compresses us. That continually firing of that stress response, that cortisol, adrenaline, noradrenaline, which is an amazing thing because we do need it.
Oh, well, it's the same thing as pneumonia as well. Pneumonia, like when you've got in a deep state of anxiety, your lungs aren't working at their full capacity. They're not fully opening and they're not fully contracting with each breath. So what happens? They deflate. They become inactive at the lowest part, and then that's when stuff starts to pull. And like the prana, the life energy, isn't flowing freely through your body. And then how does a pneumothorax kind of happen? You you don't work like, and that's why, yeah. So if anxiety and depression is the same thing as like a stressor on the body,
Yeah.
so it's just, yeah, it's when you're actually able to take the mind out of that stress state, depressed or anxious, the whole body flourishes.
And again, that's why I say you just got to remove that aspect, which is the stress. And how do you do that? Well, meditation, deep rest is and a lot of people say, and I'm sure you probably get this a lot as well, Ty, it's like, oh, yoga is my meditation, walking is my meditation, cooking is my meditation, art for me, or music is my meditation, or surfing. It's like, no, they're wonderful, they're really beautiful things, but they're really different. And the reason I think that meditation is so powerful to, again, remove that strangler fig and those components to stress is because it drops that body into that deep, deep state of rest, which we're not getting when we're running or yoga or painting or surfing, because there's action in the body. And I think that's the big illusion of meditation is I often refer to it's a physiological state, not a mental state. So when people say, I can't meditate, so that's because you think you have to go somewhere mentally or experiencing something, but you're just dropping your body into a deep state of rest. And as a byproduct of that, you get like this huge host of benefits. So it is a crazy, I say it's not a magic bullet, but it's magic.
Yeah,
But you have to do the work.
and like just even coming back to your dad, like just even thinking of like the benefits that man could have like had from, like, he was he was always quite
Totally.
heightened, and just to think that like the power of like what we've unlocked through the power of meditation could have, and like that's a shoulda woulda coulda kind of situation. But I think that's also another reason why I on my path is seeing the effects of stress on myself, but even on other people who I've loved throughout my life who have like not or still under that power of stress, and trying to help those people see the benefit, and then being able to benefit from, like, we probably sound like we're the biggest salesman right now of meditation, but I don't think that there's anything better right now that could actually really
No.
help most people. Like, and that's a big claim. And I'd be willing to stand by it, other than fitness and yoga as well. But
Yeah.
at the end of the day, like, I've always had this saying: the body won't go where the mind won't, where the mind's not. So if the mind's not there, you can push it as hard as it wants.
Yeah.
The body is where it wants to go. You can feed it all you want to feed it, but if the mind isn't there, everything else isn't going to work long term anyway.
And that's just simple science. And again, as I said, you look around, people are eating better, doing more, but still why are these things at epidemic levels? And what's fascinating to us is even the hard thing is when people are in super stressed out state, unless they're kind of open to the ideas, that they just, again, they lose that critical thinking component. But just even on dad, and he as you know, he died of a brain tumor, but he'd sit there every night. He'd have his beers and his wine as his relaxant to try and stop, and then that'd stop the tide for a little while, and he'd have a laugh. But then he'd sit there on the couch and he'd just be rubbing his forehead every night like this, and you could almost feel it just emanating off him. It's like, dude, why are you stressed? Oh, blah, blah, blah. And funnily enough, died of a brain tumor. That pressure, that stress, that constant stress. I'm making a bit of a reach there that there's a correlation between that and stress in his dying. But I think it's a relatively safe one to assume that stress definitely played a huge component on that for him. And as you said, it is one of those things where, it's funny, like I don't talk a lot about meditation because I know that some people, like, if there's worthy inquiry, I'll chat about it, but it is so important that people have a vehicle to release stress. As you look at what all the government's doing right now for COVID, which is great. We've certainly seemed to have done some amazing things and stopped, the curve or whatever it is. And but if, what about stress? As I said, it's the biggest freaking killer on the planet. It's killing us, tenfold, 100-fold over this. And you don't see much going on the mainstream media about how to get rid of that, or how to at least reduce it. And
that's that thing. It's the classic thing. That's one of my biggest passion things. It's like everybody's about treating the symptoms rather than treating the cause.
Yeah.
And so it's like the same as heart disease, the same as like brain cancer, the same as anything. If you were to treat the cause, you would probably wipe out half of these symptoms that are occurring post fact. So it's like we're all trying to treat what could potentially happen, or we're treating the symptoms of stuff rather than looking at what is actually occurring prior to that and why has it occurred. And then, okay, look, like, why don't we implement it? But again, I don't know. We could go down a wormhole here with like money. But yeah, we'll just leave it with that.
Yeah, definitely.
It's a very hard industry to monetize.
Well, I think it's most diseases are self-limiting. So if you gave the body the right environment, again, we've got a supercomputer in here. Like, they tell us we've got the smartest computer on the planet that knows how to sort some stuff out given the right environment. And, stress in that environment is certainly the damage done there. But yeah, no, it is one of those funny things where, I love the fact that it is becoming more and more, I remember when I first went to start meditating, when I came back from Vipassana, everyone was like, have you changed your name? I actually made it. It was actually Mum's birthday, or someone's birthday, and I turned up, and I purposely hadn't shaved for like 4 weeks. And I looked like this thing, and I came in and hadn't seen Mum and that for a while, and the friends, and I stood up and said, "Oh, look, I've got a confession to make. I've actually changed my name," and was talking really quietly, and they're all freaking out, going, "Is he for real?" And I said, I said, "No, man, I'm kidding, man. I just learned how to meditate." So there's that misconception, and there is still a little bit of that. Like, I teach a lot of older guys, especially from that 50 to 60-year-old bracket, and they talk to their friends. They're going through some hard shit, and their friends kind of still pull out "Well, you're not going to wear robes, are you, mate?" So. And unfortunately, it's not. I don't think it's cool. I kind of laugh about it, but there's a real issue there that, especially with men,
absolutely,
having that openness to be able to go, be supportive at least, man. And if your friend's trying something, obviously there's an underlying cause there that they're trying to find a solution. But I said a lot of them, they tell me, I can't talk to my friends about this. I can't talk to them, and that just forces us as males to retract.
I've had the same instance, right? Like, the more I've done, the more journey I've gone on, the more the male side of my friendship group is kind of like either retracted or I've retracted from it, because you kind of get that push back off them. You're like, oh, you're like all spiritual, like you said, like, and it's like, well, I'm going on my own journey. If you can come with me if you want, or support
Yeah.
me, or I'll just keep moving. And
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
and I think that's one of the that's the reason why I really kind of started the Mindful Man project, is breaking down those barriers and the walls and the stigmas behind men succeeding in their life through this practice of yoga, meditation, fitness, whatever it is, or even in just in business and working really well. And like you said, like having that support network of male men,
Mm,
but even women, like the women are always going to get behind your back 100%. Like
it's
you
funny,
tell them
isn't it?
this, and I think that's coming into like more of a feminism talk in men finding their feminist side. And you don't have to be a girl painting, you don't have to be painting your nails and wearing tutus and stuff, but it's finding that softer
Can if you
side.
want though.
Yeah, absolutely. You can do whatever
Nothing
you
right.
want.
Yeah.
Right?
It's so it is such an interesting thing, that whole concept, and I think men still get stuck on those old archetypes, and we had in our genetics types, we had probably the epitome of the male yang.
Yeah.
Dad, I was just laughing before, thinking, God, imagine if we tried to get Dad to meditate. Maybe he might have as he got older, but I don't think he was quite ready for that. But it's interesting, and I'll share a quick story that might resonate a little bit, especially on the man. Because when I left the Benz dealership, I was going to go out and write a book on the secret to success, and go and interview a lot of the people I knew in that network they were again at the top of life's Western world game of success and achievement. And which was great, because I lived in Avalon, so Palm Beach, and all those super affluent areas. I was dealing with a lot of the who's who, and the first guy I went and interviewed funnily enough, we went and interviewed him on his yacht, and he's this retired guy, had the mansion, had the cars, had all this sort of stuff. And just, asked him, so what's the secret of success, and what advice would you give to yourself if you're a 20, all those sort of, funny questions, which I was eager to learn and to become a part of. But he had black dog depression. He'd
Yeah.
retired. His whole world was built out there. So again, that whole Vedic wisdom of we live to 100%. We live 100% within, 100% out there. He lived and attached everything to that external domain. And as a result of that, when that domain sort of was no longer there, or he's no longer in that role as the CEO of this and that inside is like, well, who am I? I've got no one like rushing to me every day, and I don't have any problems I'm solving. And he was deeply unhappy, and yet had everything, had all those external benchmarks. But still, I was like, great, because I'm good info there. I want to go and keep following this path and, racing full steam ahead. And then the second guy I interviewed was, I'll go out on a limb here and say probably the wealthiest guy I'd ever met. And he would have been about my age now, 45. And he'd take a month and go traveling through the desert with his family, doing all this cool stuff, just this amazing stuff. And I was like, dude, what do you? And he had this presence, this super calm presence, and he was never really into talking about himself. And there's this emanated a kind of a quiet power. And I went and interviewed him at a food court in a shopping mall, like, one of those sort of places where everyone's sitting around eating burgers and there's plastic tables, and I'm sitting in a table there, and this got pretty esoteric. It was almost like one of those weird moments in my life. And fortunately, I had pretty trippy experiences before that, due to my past as a young art student. And I was sitting down, I was asking him all these questions and going, so what's the secret to success, and what advice would you have given to yourself if you were younger, and blah, 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 blah. And then he just stopped and looked at me and goes, this isn't what you want. And I'm going, nah, dude, pretty sure it is. It's like, it's easy for you to sit on the other side of the table and tell me that sort of stuff. This is, I'm after this whole success thing, and I want all what you've got, and he's just going, it's not what you're after. And I was like, all right, okay, cool. And then he goes, give me your hands. And I'm going, WTF? Like, what the, I'm sitting in opposite him, and Mary's.
Are you going to give me $100 bills or what?
That's what I was hoping. But he's sitting there with his arms up like this on a 45-degree angle opposite me, and asking to hold my hands. And I'm just sitting there freaking out, going, oh my God, like, here's this middle-aged guy and this young 30-year-old guy, and we're going to be holding hands in this food court, So I ended up, I gave him my hands, and then I'm just going, holy crap. And then he goes, now close your eyes. I'm just going, kidding me? Certainly not after that. That's for sure. If that's what you're thinking. And it was bizarre, right? But my internal dialogue was, and I've always been quite empathetic and, self-conscious and all those sort of, thoughts processes. I was never one of those super extroverted personalities that didn't give a crap about anything. And anyway, my thoughts, oh my God, this just must look so weird. And all these thoughts about two guys holding hands with their eyes closed in a food court. But all of a sudden, everything just went super quiet. And in my mind, I was all of a sudden just transported to looking out over this, from the top of this hill, out over this valley and this vista. And it's just like light, blinding, beautiful golden light. And I felt this feeling of unboundedness, this amazing feeling of just love, peace. And there's no thought. It was just pure and utter existence in this really loved state. And I don't know how he did it or what he did, or I still can't really remember anything after that. I don't know how long it was going on for. But he kind of like definitely shifted some gears in there. It's like, holy crap. But the whole premise for that was what you want is a feeling.
Yeah.
And you want to be present in that feeling, because you can have like, and this is what I love about it. It took me a long time to come back to this learning. It was like, oh, wow. He was talking about the Vedic philosophy of live to 100%.
Yeah.
The first guy I interviewed, he was living 100% out there, nothing inside, dead inside and crying. Whereas this guy lived 200%. He lived fully inside and he had everything, but it wouldn't have mattered. He could have been driving a crappy car and he wouldn't have cared. And it was so powerful. And that took me a long time to really come back to that learning of, and I think from a male perspective that I was after achievement, and not just males, I'm sure there's plenty of females like that as well, but I thought I needed all these external benchmarks and goals to hit. And, I had a competition with my friends who's going to be the first millionaire and all this sort of stuff. And I did carry on that path for a little while after that meeting. And I said, I forgot it for a long time. But then just coming back to that principle of, and I think this ties into the whole Buddhist philosophy of non-attachment. I misconstrued that for a long time. I thought it means don't have anything. You can sit there eating a bowl of brown rice, but meanwhile, there's all these beautiful harvest of mangoes and banana. I'm just having my brown rice. I'm okay. And then when it came back to that understanding of living fully in the present, and that life has all these beautiful gifts that, if I have $1 million and I want to go and experience a beautiful car, why wouldn't I? It's a pinnacle of mankind's craftsmanship in the motor vehicle. Why wouldn't I experience that? But if I don't have it, I'm not attached to it. Yeah. And that was so powerful for me to finally come back to revisit that lesson that Lauren was sharing with me, that second guy I interviewed. And finally, I stopped interviewing people after that. Thought, okay, I'm done, man. Like, I'm just chasing this invisible thing. I was chasing these external benchmarks, but to come back to that place to full happiness. And it was only through meditation. And again, I forgot all that lessons. I forgot all about that. And it took me probably another 6, 7, 8 years of then practice. And then all of a sudden just came back to that feeling one day. I was just like, oh my God. And that's exactly what he tripped my circuit on and stuff. So, but there's a bit of a...
So is the book still getting written, but it might have like a bit of a tangent now, or a bit
of a different ending.
A different ending. Secrets to success. This is
the secret. Yeah. Don't worry about anything.
Could be a good read, actually.
Look, mate, like I did start writing that story out. I just woke up one morning about 3 a.m., couldn't sleep. And I went back and thought, I've got to write all that down. That was so crazy. But again, just one of those really cool gifts that somehow has crept its way into my life. I think maybe I planted all these little reminders along the way, just to say, don't get distracted, man. Don't wait till you're sick. Like Dad, like he was going to retire the year before he died, and year after he died, should I say. And putting off all those things, putting off living happily and doing things that make us feel good. And I think that using those internal feelings, if we are feeling off, meditation, I think, can help us start quieting that, to then use that little compass to go, well, who do I want to be and what do I want to be? So I think that's another benefit that meditation gives us, is the ability to come back to center, and then from there start to act from that place, and which will enrich in our lives a little bit deeper than just living superficially.
Absolutely. I think and it's good because these little pieces and these little time markers in time throughout your own timeline, once you become more aware on what's happened in the past, if those little markers kind of start to come back up, you're like, do I really want to step back into this? Is this like
Mm,
charm? Am I going in the right direction, or am I moving back in that cycle, and then am I seeing it again? And it really allows you to break those patterns and continue to move with charm, and keep moving with that path of least resistance. And
yeah.
that's definitely what it's helped me as well. Is like you hear those people who, oh my god, this keeps happening to me. Like, oh, I used to be that person. Like, I was like, oh my god, my business is failing at the moment. Blah blah blah, and then it'll be going great, but then it comes back around, and I was like, well, until I started really working on like the mindset sort of things and listening to what was actually going on in my head and what I was telling myself just before that complete like obliteration or like self sabotage or whatever it was like, okay, cool, like that is what is now triggering, and I was actually able to become more in control of my deeper thoughts, like the subconscious thoughts that were putting me in that position. And now it's like, yeah, it just, I think it just starts to snowball, and you,
Mm.
no matter what kind of comes up at you, you still have your roadblocks, and you still have those potholes in the road that, but they don't sound like they're not as like to use the analogy like with the car that has no suspension compared to a car that'll just
Mm.
got air ride suspension that goes over the top of it. It's like you might with meditation you might drive over that pot without meditation, drive over that pot on it and keep driving,
Yeah.
or you might get that whoosh and you keep moving through it. And um,
It's
yeah,
like it's like as a surfer, you know, like it's if you don't know how to duck dive, it's going to be a bit of a hard slog to try and get out the back. You're going to get smashed back in the shore. You'll eventually get out the back, but you're going
yeah,
to be exhausted.
yeah.
Yeah, you know, when you learn to duck dive, which for those that don't surf, it's when you paddle and duck dive under the oncoming wave, and you can slip under it rather than getting pushed back to shore constantly and pushed back to shore.
Yeah,
That's the same concept.
I think we surfed once when I was a kid, and
At Terrigal, was it? I think
yeah, I think it's
Avoca,
in Terry
Avoca.
or Avoca, and I was getting hammered. It was a decent surf, and I was getting hammered. And you're like, open your eyes when you go into the water and just pick your way through the thing. And I was just like, and it was the one thing that's like stuck with
Yeah,
me
it's so
throughout my
cool.
entire surfing like career, I guess you could call it. My
Yeah,
surfing, that's not so much a career, it's a hack. But
yeah,
yeah, but just diving under and then looking under, and it's so beautiful under there as well. As soon as you
yeah.
open your eyes, you're like, you can actually just pick your way through rather than going through it and getting it absolutely nailed.
And it's the same as meditation. That's so cool you that I shared that because I remember the first time I did. I used to do the same thing, and then I had a friend go, "Dude, like, open your eyes, man." And go, "Really? You open your eyes under there?" It's like, yeah, okay, cool. That makes sense. And but I think meditation is exactly like you said, like the suspension. It's the same thing as the diving under the waves. Like we still go through those same things, but they just don't drag us backwards and waste a lot of energy. I was reading a fascinating thing the other day, and it came up several times actually that I think Tom Knowles mentioned it as well that you probably know through the Vedic community. And there was a scientist, what was his name, that Sir John Eccles, and they were talking about, because there's that concept that we're only using about 3% of our brain or 7% of our brain. And then through some of the stuff I was reading recently, it's like, no, we're using 100% of our brain, but running old programs, running us, and as you said, defaulting back to these old patterns. And that takes up so much energy that our brain's just stuck on that. So when it comes to seeing those potholes ahead, we're just defaulting straight over them, getting bang, 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 bang. And we don't get to use that innate wisdom and intelligence that we've all got access to. And he was saying that 97% of the brain function is a lot of time dealing with stress components. It's just shutting down so much, but it's having to do all that work. So when we can start to alleviate that, we just get access to that whole computer system, and can come back to that analogy of the dad in the toolkit. There's me, my little black box, versus what I need right now.
It's one of the analogy that I like to use as well is like, those old Windows computers where you had to run a defrag after you'd opened up a bunch of
Yeah,
suspect files after an afternoon on the internet, and then you run a defrag, and then all of a sudden you see all the puzzles pieces like going back into where they have to go, because like your computer completely slowed down to a point where wasn't going to operate. And I think of that. That's the mind. If you're just overloading everything, boom, 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 cramming, it needs a place to defrag. It needs a place
Totally.
to just resort and reshuffle everything back out so those programs run optimally so you're not getting slowed down and you can continue to move forward.
Yeah, it's crazy, isn't it? Like you're thinking, and this is running from the moment we wake up, we hit play. It's like, okay, I'm playing rich now, and to go to bed, and that brain, those thoughts, it's just supporting it all day long. It's
Well, yeah, and you think about even in sleep, like you have a certain amount of time where you're in deep REM sleep, where you're in that deep
yeah,
rest, and everything else up until that point, and then just after it, when you start to come out of deep REM and your brain is already firing up, ready to go for the day. There's not a point. There's not a lot of time throughout your day if you're not meditating. You're maybe got 2 or 3 hours of deep REM sleep if you're a good sleeper.
yeah.
And then that's the other thing. Meditation obviously helps better sleep.
Mm.
So
Yeah, as I said, it's the magic. It's magic when you do it. It's kind of flated crazy stuff, but it's a big program to run. You know, like to run ourselves and run our stories and run our backlog. And I also, that concept of meditation being a twice a day, 20-minute holiday from my own stuff.
yeah, well, it's great.
It's good to park
I
it
love
for
it.
20 minutes.
I hang out for the second one. I like the second one. The first one's great, but the second one is just like I'm ready to go for the rest of the afternoon. I'm good, and it's like that second one is just like that shot of coffee in the afternoon, or the shot of the sugar hit that most people
Yeah,
go to. Is like the second one in the afternoon. Just is like that. No, no ifs or buts. The second one happens, and it always feels pretty good.
yeah, you never feel worse for it.
Absolutely. Um, the Happy Mind Project. What's happening there?
But yeah, well, that came about because we actually can't teach Vedic meditation online. So it's kind of like I felt that I had this bucket of water standing next to a house on fire. It's like, house is burning. Can't use this water. Sorry, it's it's the tradition, and I totally respect and revere that. But it was kind of like, well, shivers, I've got to be able to help somehow, right? And with all these techniques and tools that they've cultivated along the way. So we just got chatting with another good friend of mine, Carly McDowell, who's another Vedic teacher, and we are just like, well, why don't we just teach some mindfulness-based techniques online and free meditation platforms? And so we started doing it all just for free to be of service, because we just know right now that people are just struggling, a lot of people, and they don't have the tools, and some of them don't have the financial resources. So we said, let's just be purely of service. And then I brought in some friends that were breathwork specialists. We've got Fletch, who's super just science-based, the full Yang version of breath. Like he's like, everything's sort of got to be quantified. And he
Yeah.
works with Olympic athletes, Olympic teams, Cirque du Soleil, musicians, and everything, all about the power and performance and breath, and how to sleep doctor and all this sort of crazy cool stuff. And then we've got through to Wim Hof, a Wim Hof specialist, and they come on, and obviously Wim's got his foot in both science and spirit sort of spaces, and all the way through to Himalayan breathwork, and through Chelsea. And so we've got the Ying, beautiful Himalayan, which is incredibly powerful, Wim Hof, and then we've got Fletch with the full science performance breath. And we're all just doing free platforms, free sessions every week, and regardless of people's belief systems, they can tap into whatever. And then also with meditation. So we think, because we didn't want to go down the space of doing anything to do with the movement, because there's a lot of that great stuff out there, like what you guys are doing. But we just understand that the power of the breath, when we're mindfulness during the day, come back to breath, and how we use our breath in performance, and the tool of meditation can just really help people shift gears and come out of that sympathetic state of stress and into a more of a rest and play sort of state, stay and play state, and be more creative and solve the problems that they're currently in. So yeah, it's been really fun, and we've had some really amazing people from some doing some sort of podcasts like this we've been chatting to. You had some musicians come and play and do stories and stuff, so it's been a really fun project. It's been
the pianist you had on the other night was great.
Oh man, he's amazing.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, Zoom I tried to do that instruction you guys, but unfortunately it just killed the story. But I put up a post on Facebook of one of his, he recorded a song. He is just, yeah, he captures, for me, there's something, he captures meditation in music, but
Yeah.
it's so transcendent.
It's just really like it's poetry, just, and it's
Oh,
just like, yeah, like one of my most favorite quotes is Nevada Twum, and you literally do just transcend where you are when you're
yeah,
listening to his music. It's just kind of
yeah.
like, where am I right now? I'm just like, the notes literally just fill the room.
Oh, he's a genius, and I was just so blessed that again he just yeah, Carl, come on, and then the fact the music wasn't that great. The next morning he records a song for us and sends it over. It's like yeah, unreal. So it's been really fun. Like it's been a really good way just to sort of give back, you know, and to help. And like the other night we had teaching someone to meditate that was in San Francisco.
Yeah,
Um, so I think that's one of the beautiful things that's really come up this time is that we've all learned. Um, where we had to transcend from where we were, right? We couldn't stay where we were, and we've come back to that state of, okay, how do we utilize these great technologies and implement them into our life? And from that, we're seeing some really cool, beautiful things and beautiful gifts that are unfolding and people really wanting to help and give back. And so, yeah, it's been a fun ride, and yeah, who knows where it'll go. It's just a cool thing we'll still keep running it in some way, shape, form or another. And
yeah. I
yeah,
think it's a great way to allow people from, like you said, like overseas and stuff like that, access to who you are, and they, like, if they follow you on Instagram or something like that, or they're following you through socials or whatever, and then they're allowed that channel to start to access your wisdom. And who knows, one day they might be in Australia or you're over in San Francisco and you do your Vedic stuff with them, and then you've just got like you. And that's the thing, is like what we really realized with, um, even being in a city in Melbourne, and as big as Melbourne is, and as awesome as the community and stuff is here, there is still so many people in this world
no,
that
totally.
still need, or haven't had the benefit of what is on offer.
Mm,
And doing this, it's been an amazing, as much as you're not that face to face, and I'm not sitting right next to you right now, but you still get that feeling, you still get that emotion through seeing someone's reaction and stuff when helping them, and helping them realize. Then I think,
yeah.
yeah, especially for what we're doing, this has really helped. It's really allowed to unlock those different areas. And
Mm,
when Em and I, when this finishes, we're gonna continue, and but then also I'll be able to take what we've, and go and meet those people that were all over the world. And like, I did a podcast the other day, and Dan was like, "Oh, now you've got like 100 different couches you can go and sleep on across the world." And like, it's a pretty good concept.
yeah.
Yeah, but like, I wouldn't go and crash on people's couches, but back in the day I probably would have.
Would have been a standard.
Yeah,
Yeah, no, it is. I think it's a real good gift, and for me, it really just comes down to I just love being. Yeah, I think the seeds of this are in old people, the seeds of happiness, the seeds of fulfillment and life and joy. I don't think we're born to suffer and to be stressed. And that within inside of us is, again, all these great teachers of what you seek is within. And so I think we've all got the calling in some way, shape, form, or another. And for some reason, for some, it just leads us down a different path, but we're still pursuing happiness. We just haven't figured it out yet. So I think when all we're really doing, I see Tyson, is we're kind of like we've got the little watering jug and people have got the seed and we're just sprinkling a little bit of water on it for them so then they can start seeding themselves, and just be so cool to be part of people's journeys to start to enliven their nervous system, because essentially it's what we're doing, is
yeah.
enlivening that beautiful nervous system and therefore gaining access to so much. So yeah, it is it's really fun. Who would have thought that these things would have been, thankfully we're not back in the 1918s or something when there's other plagues when you would have been
Yeah.
stuck reading books. In saying that, I love my books. I'll pick up a book as soon as I put this down.
Yeah. Well, that's all. Wasn't it? Wasn't it Aristotle or something? I think it was Aristotle. I was reading the other day that he discovered a bunch of his stuff while he was actually locked up inside during the plague. So a
Yeah,
lot of smart people have discovered stuff in plague or lockdown situations. So I'm going to consider myself a smart person, and discovering the power of Zoom.
power of Zoom, mate. That's it. And just do what those other greats have done and use the brain with the creative intention and the creative purposes. And
Well, mate, where can people? Obviously, we've mentioned the Happy Mind Project, but where could people catch up with you, get in contact with you?
Yeah,
And yeah.
probably. I do use social media. I think it's Rich Muir Meditation and the Happy Mind Project on Insta. Would probably be the two spaces. Or you can look up the meditation spot, and that's my website. That's got links to the social platforms. But yeah, I think check out the Happy Mind Project, support that. That's a good, it's all just from love and from service from some pretty amazing people, and who knows where they'll unfold. And yeah, we just keep planning on giving and serving.
Did you say surfing?
Serving, but
Surfing?
it did sound like surfing. I think the wind's still blowing offshore up here, and so I might try and get in the water.
All right. Yeah, we might wrap it there, mate. Thank you very much.
Legend, man. That was great to chat.
Thanks. Well, that brings us to the end of today's show. If you like what you heard and want to get all the info, check out the show notes. While you're there, rate and review the show. And one last thing, be sure to subscribe so you don't miss out on any of the upcoming episodes. Until next time, my friends, continue to look out for each other and continue to lift each other up.